Welcome to the SCLD podcast, where we talk about all the things you can do and find at the library.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. My name is Erin Dodge and I'm the communication specialist with the library. And with me today we have Pia Johnson Barreto, who is a Latina educator and child advocate, and also librarian Dana Menino. And we're here to talk about a couple different things, a program that we have coming up in January at the library, as well as the work that Pia does in the community. And let's start there, and welcome.
Thank you so much.
So let's talk a little bit about your work, how it came to be, and River of Colors, which is the organization that you started.
Yes, that's correct.
And what you do with that organization.
Yeah, so I'll start a little bit with a little about me.
Okay.
I'm actually an immigrant here to the United States. My family is originally Peruvian. So when I was growing up, I was born in Peru, but then I happened to be raised in different countries because of different reasons. And ultimately, it led to me having what I would call a third culture identity, basically confusion about who I was, where's my culture, and what identity means to me. And with that, growing up and going through all these pieces, I never really thought that cultural identity was important. I just kind of felt like a chameleon through life, and I was okay with switching back and forth and moving into spaces. We use terms like code switching, right, when we talk about that behavior. And that just led to a lot of my interest in education and the work that I do now, which is equity focused. I also have now a multiracial family. So I have 3 children with 3 different backgrounds. My oldest is a Black child who just wonderful, thrives through life, but also goes through many, many difficulties. And then I also have 2 younger kids who tend to look a little whiter. So my experience with them is so different, and my life changes based on my experiences with them. So for example, when I am seen out with my Black child, oftentimes community assumes that I'm a foster parent and that I'm fostering her. And when I'm seen outside with my, lighter child who also looks a lot whiter, people assume that I'm the nanny. And so that led to a lot of my work around how can we also build community for these experiences and what they mean for multiracial families. But going back to River of Colors a little bit, River of Colors really started last year. And it started with a focus of really cultural identity being central and important to curriculum, being central and important to providers and professionals. And then we looked into the idea of how can we then pull money in to build circles of connections for families who are multiracial, who are raising children of color, who go through different stressors, and how can we build community around that? And so that kind of led to my conversation with Dana about this program.
Yeah. So I met Pia in the context of my work with the Latino community, which has been a wonderful adventure. They came to us and said, let me help you make the library better for Latinos. And we've been trying out different programs. And part of that process has been looking for a need that the library is in a good position to provide, that isn't duplicating efforts in other places. And when Pia and I were talking about what she could offer at the library, she was telling me about how she could get her vital information out to teachers pretty easily and out to other caregivers who are associated with an institution. She could do trainings at Latinos in Spokane. She could do trainings with social workers. She could do trainings with schools. But she didn't have a way yet to get information to parents without the parents having to pay for it.
Oh, okay.
So here was the library, which offers workshops to individuals.
For free.
For free with your taxpayer dollars.
Yes.
So in that way, we could compensate Pia for her expertise, which is extremely valuable. And we could offer something to the community that they wouldn't have access to unless they were professionally in one of those roles.
I see.
And so it was very exciting to have this conversation with Pia. We were originally pursuing a workshop in Spanish, which will take place in spring. It'll be published soon. But from that conversation about offering something in Spanish came the seed of this idea of also offering it in English for any caregiver who is raising a child of color and is looking for some extra tools and extra insights. And I think Pia has a unique way of approaching those, and we're excited to give her a place to share that.
And now the program that's coming up in January, it's called Parenting for Caregivers Raising Children of Color. And earlier, before we started the podcast, we were talking a little bit about the word parenting and how some people appreciate like parenting tips, and some people might not find parenting a word that they want to even like consider. Like they have their own parenting style, and that's it. So do we want to talk a little bit about the workshop and the discussion and what the program really is? Is it parenting tips?
I wouldn't say that it's parenting
Yeah,
tips.
okay.
I mean, if there was,
I knew that. But just to like let people who are watching and listening know, it's not really about parenting tips, right? It's more. Tell us what it's about.
I mean, I think that if there was a parenting tip manual, that would be life changing. But the reality is that parents are exposed and caregivers are exposed to so much on social media now about, healing and trauma. And there is such a conversation. Really, the intent of the space is to build community with other people who are going on a similar journey around talking to children about certain stressors in their lives that maybe are things that we don't see in traditional parenting spaces. We have a lot of programs to support families, but we don't have a lot of spaces where families can talk about children who experience racism at school or children who experience differences in how other children perceive them and navigate the world differently. And so how do we have those conversations with children is a conversation that caregivers want to have, and we are looking for that space. And so I think that intent here is to build connection and community.
Well, and just even earlier you were talking about, the perception of you and your family just out in the world, and that perception carries over into schools, it carries over into all aspects of life. So this sounds like a program where people can come in with their experiences and you can discuss and share and connect, as you were talking about.
In our quest to inspire the next generation of scientists, engineers, and innovators, the library offers a wide range of programs and resources on science, technology, engineering, and math, together referred to as STEM. For young explorers, our STEM programs ignite imagination and hands-on learning. Did you know you can design your own video game, code a robot, create a marble roller coaster, or try out exciting science experiments? Together, we make STEM fun. Your library also has STEM resources you can explore at home. You can check out books on great STEM topics and borrow cool stuff, like telescopes and exploration kits from our Library of Things. Unleash your creativity, foster innovation, and explore all that Spokane County Library District has to offer. We invite you to visit one of our libraries today.
Yeah, and that's another reason that this was a great fit for the library, because this year in particular, when we went out into the community in our last information gathering cycle, which we do periodically, we asked people what they're thinking about, what kind of community they want. And this is something we heard this time that we hadn't heard in prior versions of this exercise, was how much people are experiencing loneliness, how people were longing for connection instead of loneliness.
And it feels like maybe the pandemic exacerbated that, made it more evident. It rose to the top, right?
Yes. And so when Pia and I were imagining this workshop, we were imagining this as a place where parents who are going through varied but similar life experiences. Every family's story is going to be a little bit different, like Pia's story, but could come together and find strength in that connection. Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay. So more questions. You were talked a little bit about cultural identity and your finding or not really having a connection, but then finding a connection. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Cultural identity, revitalization, those concepts?
Yeah. I mean, I think that we have if enough data and research to guide us to see that cultural identity is trivial to survival and connection. So usually, the younger people are, and they're able to connect with, their ancestors and their knowledge, the more confidence and the more connection they feel in their learning and their schooling and their lives. And this is true even for adults.
Okay.
And we also know that a lot of this work around cultural revitalization isn't necessarily about digging for lost things. It really is about what's already there, things that, have been passed down and have survived from centuries of knowledge, particularly around the importance of collective wellness.
Okay. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that means?
Yeah. I love talking about collective wellness.
Okay, great.
I think we live in a society where oftentimes we are very, very focused on self-care, this idea of like, hey, you go take care of yourself and take 2 days off and you're going to be okay. But the reality is that we are just sending people to isolate themselves from connection. And so for me, collective wellness is really realizing that wellness comes from connection and from people caring about others, and that everyone deserves care and everyone deserves our care, even those people who are farthest from us. And more so, families, multiracial families, children of color who also need connection and care in child rearing.
Okay. So more of a kind of community connection and care.
Yes.
Kind of. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that because I think like sometimes I do need to be by myself, but I don't want to always be by myself to self-care. Like,
I think
spending time with friends, family, ancestors, connection, like that's.
Yeah, I think this points to a way that immigrant cultures can enrich the culture in the United States.
Absolutely.
So I've spent times in a couple different cultural spaces, and I remember a friend of mine who lived in Indonesia for a while telling me a story of coming back from Indonesia with her children, being in the airport, and she has 3 very small children.
Okay.
Any of you who have children can imagine being in an airport with 3 of them. You only have 2 hands. So one of them is loose.
This is where my husband gets into a sports metaphor about playing zone instead of man-to-man.
Exactly, zone instead of man-to-man defense. So
okay.
she had been in Indonesia, and in Indonesia, everyone is playing zone defense with you, with your children.
Yeah.
You are not man-to-man in charge of watching your children. And so her child went and tried to touch the luggage conveyor belt. And another mom came to her just incensed and was like, why were you not watching your child? And of course she, went and protected her child. But a piece of her just crumpled inside and said, why weren't you protecting my child?
Right.
Because in another space that had been a shared responsibility. And I think what Pia is talking about with the collective health is like that, where we take responsibility for each other's well-being in a less individualistic way than we're used to in the United States.
Yeah, I feel like I want to agree, like that conveyor belt airport scenario. I find myself at like when my children were a little bit younger at playgrounds and stuff. And I felt like I was parenting a bunch of kids, because I'd be like, okay, let's not throw sand at the little ones over there, I feel like a part of me was like, I'm overstepping. Like, I know I'm going to get a mad parent here in a minute telling me not to tell their kid what to do. But then on the other hand, I'm like, whoa. Like, we got to be safe for everybody. Everybody who's playing has a right to play here. Let's not make it a place where someone's going to get hurt. So it's tough, especially in this. So I like this idea of introducing collective wellness and introducing that we can be responsible, take some responsibility for others as well as ourselves. Yeah?
Yeah, and it has to come from a place of trust, right? Because I think that there is a lot of shame and blame around parent performance. Around how you parent your children. And I'm number one to say that, people, you see me at the store, and I'm definitely not talking about cultural revitalization, right? I am addressing feelings, and we're working through feelings. And I have come to a place where, I have, regardless of how people perceive that, I'm on my journey, and that's what it means for me. And I know that people that I trust understand what the journey looks like. So I think when there is trust in community, when there is love and there is care, there's also an understanding that everyone is doing the best that they can.
Sure.
And we are here to be elements of support to them, not to shame, not to blame, and not to make them feel inadequate in that work. Yeah.
The latest issue of Engage is here. Inside, you'll find programs and resources for all ages and a wide variety of interests. Explore creative topics that spark the imagination. Find programs for health and wellness, financial education, gardening, and more. Hear from best-selling authors. Bring young children to weekly story times. See our STEM programs for kids. Discover digital resources that can help you pick up a new hobby and explore topics for personal and professional growth. Pick up your copy of Engage at any of our libraries or flip through the digital version today on our website at scld.org.
All right.
Yes.
Well, and then, can we talk a little bit about race and racism and sort of what in this workshop, what sorts of things might parents bring to the discussion, and what you might have for them in talking about race and racism, and especially with children of color. And but I'm sorry to turn it now. I feel like I'm just turning into something really serious, but I think it's important topic.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we are aware that racism is real and that impacts children in different ways in schools, at home, in the streets. And so we are now recognizing that through history and through centuries, particularly families of color have passed down this protectiveness for children, and also this protectiveness around if I parent you and I sort of discipline you to not speak, to not do much, to be less harmful, your life experience, you might live just through the society. And what people don't realize is that there's a lot of intergenerational trauma around that. Message has been passed down generations, and it is a real experience still till this day, right? So a lot of the conversation is really recognizing what have our ancestors done to protect children from racism, from harm, and then what do we do now today to protect them, knowing that this is ongoing, happening every day in their lives.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
It's a lot to think about and a lot to discuss, but I think like you were saying, it's important, and it's definitely worth the discussion and the thought.
And when Pia and I were thinking about creating this workshop, I was really confident in contracting with Pia because I knew that Pia could make a safe space where parents could venture into uncomfortable topics.
That's important too.
So I hope that this workshop is a safe space where parents who are going through something hard can come and connect.
And connect and find others who they can and find support and continue discussion as well.
And I might add in, I know that safety can never be guaranteed too, right? Because we are literally living in a space where there's so many oppression things happening and everything is actively occurring. However, we can find a space to connect and have some courage around those conversations and what that means for our communities.
Yeah. Would it be a better way to say that Pia can create a space that invites you into a place of courage?
I like that. Yes.
Do you like that?
I feel so honored. I don't know if it's me, if it's really people just finding connection and really facilitating a space that people can find, that inspiration around what they do.
I like the idea, though, of inviting courage. Okay, so really quickly, I just want to say where the program's happening and when. So it's at North Spokane Library, and it's on Saturday, January 27th from 2:30 to 4:30. Is it registration required? I can't remember.
The registration is required because we are offering childcare during this program. So if you register, I will call you and I will ask, do you need us to watch any children? We can take children who have been potty trained. So are you bringing any kids with you? And then we'll make sure that we have a safe number of adults present in the room with your children. So please do register in advance, and please, if childcare is a problem, the library is offering that. We will be doing enriching educational activities with your kids while you are doing enriching educational activities with Pia. It will be a wonderful Saturday for all.
And you know what? We're going to have that the link to get registered in the description below. So just find that description, click on the link, and then you can register for the class. And it's It's called Parenting for Caregivers Raising Children of Color, but it's not a parenting tips workshop. So I'm full confession. I'm the one that edits these program titles, and I did not do a good job. We'll get it right next time. So it's more of a connecting space, a discussion space, a space of courage and hopefully some safety.
Yeah, there we are. Yes.
All right. Before we go, can you tell us a little bit about who this program is intended for? Adoptive parents, parents of color, parents not of color, but with children of color. A little bit about who it's for.
Yeah, I think that if you are feeling like cultural connection is something important to you and your family, please come. I would say that this is really about the fact that even young people who have been raised in multiracial homes, even young people that we would say are white passing and are navigating life, the cultural connection and identity is still very, very important and relevant to your lives and their lives. And there are systems that prevent us from maintaining culture and also revitalizing it. So if cultural identity and connection is important to you and to your children, please come.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Pia. Thank you, Dana. Thank you for watching. Sign up and check out for more programs for different types of topics related to this. And we'll see you next time.